Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Good. Were you all able to stay off of Facebook? Who was able to stay off of Facebook the last week? All right, we've got one. Aaron, good job. It's been quite a week, hasn't it? It was the last week has been quite a whirlwind for our family. Starting with Annalise, we all got a stomach bug. We all got sick. It went kind of like ripped through all of us. I know it did through other families as well. So I hope everybody's feeling okay now. And the election was quite intense, wasn't it? I think it was very unexpected for a lot of people, exciting for a lot of people, scary, emotional. I think there are a lot of people all over the place. But the election is done, but I see all the ripple effects playing out on Facebook, and in relationships and families. And I've been kind of dreading giving this service all week, actually. I thought, I'll just talk about something nice. But I realized, we're the effects of the emotional things that we go through are real, and so we need to, talk about those things. So I didn't know what I was going to say for most of the week. I was stressing out about it. Last night I dreamed that I woke up and service had already started without me, and but anyway, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I felt that now what we're left with is our responsibility, right? What happens next and what happens in our life is really up to us. So I wanted to talk about brotherly love. And in our faith, this actually fits into, it's just a small part of a much bigger picture. There's a concept in one of our teachings called the Foundation for the Messiah. So I want to go a little bit over that with you first. This is an excerpt from the Exposition of Divine Principle. And it says, "For fallen people to be restored to their original state, we must receive the Messiah. Before we can receive the Messiah, however, we must first establish the foundation for the Messiah." So what does that mean? It sounds a little bit complicated. But really it means is we need to be ready for Jesus. There were plenty of people on the earth when Jesus came, weren't there? But most of them never even recognized him. Most of them, it didn't even make a ripple in their life because they were not prepared. So for us to be able to receive the Messiah, receive Jesus, we need to have a foundation in our own life that makes us ready for him. And also in our own daily life, in order for God to work, we need to be ready. I have confidence that God wants to give us blessings. I have confidence that God wants to transform us. I have confidence that God wants to live in our life and for us to see that in actuality in our life. But before that can happen, we need to be ready for it. So we call these preparations a foundation of faith and a foundation of substance. The foundation of faith, I kind of wrap it up and describe it as learning, understanding, and acting on God's words by making an offering. This was actually the first thing that Adam, God's very first child, failed to do. He didn't believe and act on God's commandment. God asked him not to eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's the one thing God told him, and he didn't believe it. He didn't act on it. But when we can do what Adam couldn't do, then we establish ourselves as a person that God can work with. That is our foundation of faith. It definitely doesn't mean that we're perfect, but it kind of means we're putting ourselves at the starting line. Say, okay, now I'm ready to work. Now we're ready to do something. That's a foundation of faith. The next part is the foundation of substance. So this is the more difficult. This is interpersonal. This is interrelational. It doesn't just have to do with your belief in God and you show God you love him by doing a fast for 7 days, or by reading the Bible from front to back, or by praying every day. This is acting out our faith in our daily life with the people in our lives. So this is what actually restores us. We do this by removing our fallen nature. And what is our fallen nature? There's many things. But you could say our jealousy, anger, resentment, frustration, arrogance. And we do this we remove our fallen nature by taking a course which reverses the process through which human beings initially acquired the fallen nature. So, I don't know if you got that, but I'm going to share a little bit up on the screen so you can see it. I have a few more. This is kind of an explanation of that process, which is in the Divine Principle. The archangel fell because he did not love Adam. Right? God created Adam and Eve with the help of the archangel, and the archangel was to love and guide and educate Adam and Eve and raise them up to become the fulfillment of God's purpose. They were supposed to be, perfect children of God. But he did not love Adam the way that God loved Adam. Rather, he envied Adam, who was receiving more love from God than he. This was the cause of the first primary characteristic of the fallen nature, failing to take God's standpoint. So this is the first aspect of fallen nature. And to remove this characteristic of the fallen nature, what is the reverse process? We need to love others. And especially, we need to love them from God's viewpoint, not from our own perception of if we like them or not. The archangel fell because he did not respect Adam as God's mediator and did not receive God's love through him. Rather, he attempted to seize Adam's position. This was the cause of the second primary characteristic of the fallen nature, leaving one's proper position. So, to remove this characteristic of the fallen nature, what do we need to do? How do we reverse that? Then we need to respect others as people that God can work through. Respect. The archangel fell when he claimed dominion over Eve and Adam, who were his rightful lords. This was the cause of the third primary characteristic of the fallen nature, reversing dominion. So, how do we remove this fallen nature? What is the reverse course of this one? To remove this characteristic of the fallen nature, we need to serve others. And lastly, the archangel conveyed to Eve his evil will, that it was permissible to eat of the fruit. Eve, in turn, conveyed this evil will to Adam and led him to fall. This was the cause of the fourth primary characteristic of the fallen nature, multiplying evil. So failing to see from God's viewpoint, failing to love from God's viewpoint, not respecting and serving, and then multiplying evil. So to remove this last characteristic of the fallen nature, we need to multiply goodness to others. That's the reverse course. So love, respect, serve, and multiply goodness. These are the ways that we can remove our fallen nature and, in simple terms, make our foundation of substance. make a foundation for us to be ready for God to work in our life. So it sounds really nice, right? Love, respect, serving, multiplying goodness to everybody. But I tell you, it's not easy. If it's somebody that you already love, then yeah, that sounds great. I can do that. But God is asking us, especially, to do this for the people that are not easy to love. So and just to illustrate how monumental it would be if we could do this, I'm going to take you through a little walk through a little bit of history in the Bible. So if we look at history, many important people in the Bible were able to make their foundation of faith. They were able to demonstrate their faith to God, their love for God. Abel, he made the animal sacrifice that was acceptable to God. Noah, he built an ark entirely on faith on a mountaintop that was a true demonstration of faith. Abraham was willing to sacrifice his only son because that was what God asked of him. But when it came time for people to work together, then what happened? Cain killed Abel. He couldn't stand that Abel's offering was accepted and his wasn't. And Abel probably was a little bit arrogant about that too. What happened in Noah's family? Noah's sons were embarrassed by their father. They disgraced him. They couldn't love and respect and see from God's viewpoint what he had accomplished as monumental in history. So the first people ever in the history of the world who were able to rise above their jealousy, resentment, and hatred were Abraham's sons, Jacob and Esau. So I know that many of you probably know their story, but it's always a good refresher. So, let's see here. Here we go. So I'm going to share this story with you. They almost didn't do it. They were set up from the beginning to hate each other. In the Bible, it says that Rebecca was pregnant with twin boys. I know what that's like. And they were fighting in her womb. And one was starting to come out, and they marked him, and then the other one pulled him back in, and he came out first. From the very beginning, they had it out for each other. And as they grew up, Esau was like the manly man. He had the curly chest hair, and he was the hunter. And Jacob was a good cook. And so Esau, as I'm sure he probably often did, he was out on a hunting expedition, working hard, shooting his animals. And he came back and he was starving. And his brother was cooking a bowl of lentils or soup or pottage, whatever you want to call it. And Esau said, give me some food. And Jacob said, well, give me your birthright. I'll give you some food. And he did it. I think this shows something about Esau's character. And I also read that he married 2 wives from basically from the Gentiles, and his parents were really upset by that. But it basically kind of shows his character, that he was willing to do whatever it took to get what he wanted in the moment, right? So Esau gave up his birthright to Jacob. But not only that, when their father was getting older, Isaac was getting older, and he wanted to give his blessing to Esau as the oldest son. And Rebekah helped Jacob to trick Isaac into believing that he was Esau. They helped Jacob trick Isaac into giving the blessing to him. So, bless you. So they put some sheepskin on his arms and his neck to help him feel really nice and hairy, like Esau. And Isaac couldn't see very well, so he just felt him and said, "Okay, Esau, I give you my blessing." And then Esau comes back from probably another one of his hunts or something and realizes that he's lost everything. Not only did he give up his birthright, he also lost the blessing from his father. I'm sure in that day and age, that means you're a man without anything. So he was furious, of course, and Jacob had to flee to Haran, which is where his uncle Laban lived. And he spent 7 years working from the lowest of lowest positions. They're taking care of the animals, herding the sheep, and he wanted to marry Laban's son, Rachel. Daughter. And so Laban said, "Okay, well, you work for me for 7 years, and I'll let you marry my beautiful daughter, Rachel." So he did it, for 7 years, so that he could win his prize. And then on the wedding night, she's got her veil on, and they marry each other, and it was actually Leah. Laban gave him the wrong daughter. I think I would be really upset if I was Jacob. But he persevered with humility. He continued to work for him for another 7 years in order to be able to marry Rachel, which he did. So his hard work pays off, his family and his fortune multiplies, and then he goes to meet Esau. So I want to share the rest of this story directly from the Bible. Oh, that's when Esau came back and realized that he'd lost his blessing. So Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. What do you think he was coming with 400 men to do? He probably could have felt capable to kill him on his own, but he wanted to make sure the job was done. He brought 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. "Who are these with you?" he asked. Jacob answered, "They are the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next, Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What is the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met?" "To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. But Esau said, "I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." "No, please," said Jacob. "If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God. Now that you have received me favorably, please accept the present that was brought to you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need." And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted it. It's from Genesis 33, 1 through 11. So Jacob and Esau had every reason to hate each other. This wasn't simple misunderstandings and communication. You know, Jacob tricked his father. He stole his blessing. But also because of that, he had to run away, leave his family, leave his the people that he loved, and basically be a servant for 14 years, being tricked himself into marrying the wrong person. This is not a simple misunderstanding. They had every reason to hate each other. But with the love and service of Jacob to Esau, and with Esau being open to receiving it, all of that was melted away when they met each other. All of that was erased when they embraced each other. But it doesn't just end there. That's not just the happy story, right? Because they had the connection to God, they united with each other, then there was a foundation that was just the beginning for God to be able to work in their families and receive Jesus. So God blessed the children of Jacob and Esau to become the Israelites, who became the chosen people to receive Jesus. So do you get how monumental that was in history? I'm sure that God wanted to, from the moment that Adam and Eve fell away from God, I'm sure that God wanted to rush in. I'm sure he wanted to save them. I'm sure he wished he could have sent Jesus at that very moment, but there was nothing there. Not until Jacob and Esau overcame their resentments, overcame their jealousy, overcame their hatred and their arrogance, and embraced one another in spite of all that. So these are the moments that God works in, and works in powerful ways. The foundation of substance calls for enemies to come together beyond disagreements, misunderstandings, or reasons that we have to hate one another. It's one thing to love, serve, respect, and multiply goodness to the people that we love. I think that's part of our original nature. I think the good part of us from the very beginning of time that Satan could never take away from us wants to do this. But it's another thing entirely to love, respect, serve, and multiply goodness to the people that we don't like so well, or that we just don't understand. The people that we disagree with, or people who've hurt us. That is the last thing that we want to do. Most of the time we would rather just live our own life and do good on our own terms. But I have another quote from the Bible. This is from Matthew 5:23 through 25. Oh, there they are. Isn't that a beautiful picture? And this quote, I feel like, illustrates that we can't just do good on our own. So if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. I have a couple of quotes also from Reverend Moon, our Father Moon, who has founded our faith. If you love each other, both will prosper. But if you hate each other, you will not only be separated, you will be ruined. We must take the initiative to tear down the walls, to reach out to others, instead of waiting for others to reach into us. I feel like a lot of this whole concept of getting rid of our fallen nature, embracing people around us, creating this foundation of substance, it's really about becoming the bigger man, becoming a bigger person than what you are, going beyond the emotions and feelings that we might get caught up in the moment and seeing beyond that, acting not just for your own self-interest, but for the interest of a greater result. Just a little personal experience, since I do happen to have twin boys, I feel like I could have a little bit of an insight into what God's viewpoint is on us as children who can't always get along, who sometimes point fingers. I know that when my boys are arguing, I don't care whose fault it was. I really don't. And when my boys are saying, well, he did this to me, and he did this to me, and he did this to me, I really don't care about those details. I really, really don't. First of all, I know that it's not just one person's fault. It's never just one person's fault. And second of all, when I look at them, I don't see that part of them. I see the handsome, loving boys, and I see the boys that they're turning into. I see the men that they're turning into, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at their future, and I don't really care what's happening right now in the moment with them. And I don't know how to put this. Let's see. I feel like God also, when he looks at us, of course, we're caught up. That's all we can see sometimes is the struggle that we're in the moment, or the frustrations that we have. But God is looking at us, and he's looking at the transformation that we're going to have. He doesn't want us to be just struggling with where we're at right now in the moment, because that's not who he sees us being. That's not who he sees us staying as. God sees us all becoming something greater than what we already are right now. So, wherever you are at right now, and whoever you voted for, I don't care. And I don't think God cares. I think God, most of all, is looking at all of us and waiting for all of us to become the people who are the first to extend a hand of offering to the other side. To become the first, to become the bigger man, to love not just for my own sake, but for everybody involved. And these little things, it may seem insignificant between two people, but that's all it took for Jesus to come. Two people, Jacob and Esau. I think sometimes we downplay the importance of who we are, and the importance of what we do in our life, and the importance of those little moments where we overcome and become a better person. Those moments of transformation. But don't underestimate those. Because two people transforming their relationship can transform an entire family. Two families transforming their relationship can transform an entire community. Two communities doing that can transform an entire world. So I'm excited looking to the future. I'm excited about the coming days and months and years. I'm excited about what we can show God, what we can do. So I just want to leave that with you. I want to say I love you. I'm excited for you. And I hope that we can create a process of creating something that The election doesn't even matter anymore. That is something way in the past, because that was one of those small, little, petty things that we argued over as young children. But now we're bigger than that. So have a wonderful week, and love you all.